Hey there. Yeah. What's up? I'm making a bit of a witch's brew right now. Totally not poison or anything. You know what? You want to try a little bit?
Welcome back to the MidMasq channel. It appears that my analytics tell me something a little disturbing. About 16 trillion million billion of you are not subscribed who watch this. So make sure you do that. But analytics aside, today's video topic is all about the worst damage type in Dungeons and Dragons. Ooh, good YouTube title. Of course, if you're familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, you've played it for a while, you likely know the answer to this question. But this video aims to talk more about the fact that, yes, poison is a bad damage type. Because of course, if you saw the video title in the parentheses, the little brackets there, it says, and how to make it better. So this video's topic is Dungeons and Dragons, the worst damage type, and how to make it better. Poison is a fun damage type that comes up a lot when creatures are using it, of course. It's not often the player actually gets to utilize poison damage, and when they do, it's often not good because many creatures resist poison damage if they are not just outright immune to it in the first place. Instances of player-inflicted poison damage can be completely resisted and ignored with a low DC Constitution saving roll, which is something most monsters are good at. Constitution is a very common stat for a lot of beefy monsters to have, so them to fail a DC 10, 12, 13, 14, and so on, save is a lot more likely than you'd think, which is just another big L towards poison as a damage type because besides the fact that, hey, half the damage just disappears in the first place, it might not be inflicted at all. Speaking about more player-inflicted poisons, a lot of them don't even inflict the poisoned condition on creatures that it can affect. For example, poison spray doesn't poison enemies, even though it does poison damage. Obviously, poison spray is a cantrip, so we're trying to limit the power here, so it not inflicting a status effect at level 1 probably makes sense. But again, so many things are immune to poison, maybe throwing it a bone would be good, but that's a topic for later in the video. And because there's so many problems around poison, entire systems where, you can go collect it, you can go make it, you can go buy it, with all these little things that are in the Dungeon Master's Guide that go completely underutilized, underused, underrated, which I made a video on. You can check that out here, somewhere. And what feels a little unfair as well is when a monster uses poison against you, it's often like 12d8 poison damage that you can't resist unless you're a one-tie or a something else, you just have poison resistance. Additionally, a lot of the DCs to save against that poison, especially early on, they're pretty high, especially for early on. Like, oh my god, they're high. So you're just sitting there taking 12d8 poison damage, 4d6 poison damage, and you're sitting here like, man, I could do 1d12 poison damage, and they're gonna take like half of that. So, with all that said, what can we do to make poison damage better? Well, I'm going to provide a couple solutions, and then I'm going to elaborate on those solutions a little bit, because at first they might sound like, oh my god, you have no idea what you're talking about. But I assure you, I do know what I'm talking about, because I'm MidMasq. I have no idea what I'm talking about. We can start with making poison damage occur in much larger numbers. And when I say much larger numbers, I mean within reason, of course. We don't want poison spray doing 8d12 damage, because then you essentially have a instant kill button for everything through levels 1 through 8. But instances where you have to buy or collect poison, those should be more rewarding with more damage, given many of the creatures you're going to even use that poison against are going to resist half of it anyway. Additionally, you can also make it so poisons inflict status effects regardless of whether or not the creature is resistant or immune to poison. Things like paralysis, stunned, madness, I mentioned that before, and so on, would be interesting ways to make poison just a little better without really doing just pure damage. It also provides a more unique tool set to marshals who decide to, wipe their blade with a certain type of poison. Another way you can make poison just a little better is by adding in some rare poisons, depending upon how you want to do this. It can do many different things. Some poisons can overcome damage immunities or resistances, and here's an example. Say there is a zombie lord, immune to poison or resistant against poison, what have you. Why not have a super rare poison that's a flesh-eating poison? That gives you a way to kind of explain why it works against an undead being, but gives it a pretty good reason for working. These rare poisons obviously should be rare, but allow the players to, play around, mess around a little bit with poison damage without being completely and utterly shut down at basically every turn. Because poisons don't just have to be like green ooze. That's what poison is. Hooray. Because many real-life poisons can do a lot of weird, wacky, different things. Like I mentioned with the flesh-eating poison, a lot of spider venom is just flesh-eating. There's no reason it wouldn't work against zombies or other things that might be kind of resistant or immune to poison damage. Obviously, there are different instances where you can argue that wouldn't flesh-eating stuff be necrotic damage, but then you say necrotic damage is purely magical or what have you. That's a whole other topic for another video. But I still thought, hey, it's worth considering what is poison damage. Defining what poison damage is in your game is fairly important to how you want this entire thing to go. Now, to kind of just explain everything I just said in a more clear and succinct way, let me go over it again. Making some poisons do considerably more damage to overcome the very common resistance, helps overcome that resistance with just a little bit more damage, while also making it an effective tool against those who are not outright immune or resistant to the poison. Obviously, I'm not saying you should do any crazy damage like 24d12 of poison damage, but just enough where it is a useful tool for your players. And following this up, making poison a useful tool by giving it the ability to inflict status effects is a great way for your marshals to kind of expand what they can and cannot do during battle. Because as it stands, as we all know, fighters don't have a lot to do besides hit thing a lot very quickly. Giving them the ability to, hit something, it gets stunned by the poison, and then they can run because it is like a red dragon and they have no business being there. It's a fun way just to kind of mix up your player's arsenal. And also give them a new system to craft and buy and spend coin with, in case you're having players hoard a lot of gold and they don't really know what to do with it. It's a good way to burn some of that off. And rare poisons can be rewards to those players who like to explore new and weird ways to expand the arsenal. These rare poisons that overcome some resistances or immunities, or perhaps have really special effects that, maybe you got this venom from a weird teleporting creature, and whenever you stab it into something else, it banishes them for a minute. There's all sorts of weird ways you can just utilize poison, while also making it good. Because you don't have to listen to rules as written. You really don't. Obviously, some may want to stick as close as possible, but finding ways to make something that is essentially useless to the player just a little more not useless will feel really good on the player's part. And of course, with Dungeons & Dragons, we're all trying to have fun here, so adding in more fun to a game that's already fun is double fun. So if there's anything you'd like to add to this conversation, because this is a conversation, and what I say might not fit into your game exactly, and you might want to make your own tweaks, let us know how... Let us know, the collective of people that run this channel other than me. Let me and the other audience members know how you change poison in your game, if you do at all, or if you have any ideas on how you can change it. I made another video discussing some underrated features in D&D, poison being among them. I also have a short in case you're a short watcher-like person, both of which will be in the description and pinned comment below. That is all from me for today. I hope you enjoyed. Adios.